What's up, everyone? We are here to talk full spoilers about Thor Ragnarok. We've seen the movie, going into full detail. If you haven't seen the movie, please bookmark this, come back, watch it when you have, because again, final warning, you're watching a spoiler cast. So, without further ado, I'm Jim, Joshua, and making his big IGN spoiler cast debut, our new guy, David Griffin. Oh, hey! Welcome. All right, so let's, no time for this. Let's move on to Thor Ragnarok. I'm the official reviewer, so I'm going to let you guys kind of have the floor here. I want to get reactions to what you thought of the movie. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good, not great. I thought it was really funny. I really enjoyed it, but I did feel like they slighted the Asgard of it all and the Ragnarok of it all, and we'll get to that in more detail in a little bit. But let's start, David, let's start with you, new guy, you're on the hot seat. What did you think of Thor Ragnarok?
Well, this seat is definitely heating up because I loved it. I haven't had this much fun in a Marvel movie in a long time. I was sitting there the whole time just laughing and cheerful. I had that joyful feeling. The only movie I could compare it to is maybe the first time I saw Avengers in the theater. I just felt very happy after I left. I mean, Marvel's very good, just kind of putting all those good feelings in you with the comedy and the action, the camaraderie between the cast, the chemistry. It was just all there for me.
Joshua.
Well, the reason you felt so happy when you left because you saw it with me, and I was there with you.
Sure, that's
but, so I actually agree with a fair amount of what you said, yet I left the theater a little disappointed because I thought it was an enjoyable Planet Hulk movie and then a pretty weak Thor movie. And I felt like even though I was laughing a lot and I felt entertained in the moment, a lot of it felt hollow. So Thor Ragnarok didn't really do it for me. I feel like how the word to describe how I felt about it was that it was fine. It was fine.
Interesting. Now, I gave it a 7.7 in my review. David, what would you have given it if you had reviewed it?
I think I'd give it an 8.5.
Oh, okay. Joshua?
Oof. I don't know. Probably like a 6.5 or a 7, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of lower.
Well, this is quite the range. Then you can see then that I don't think we've actually done this kind of spoiler cast in a while where there has been such a range of like reactions to it. So that's good. That's good. Now let's get into some specifics here. You bring up the Planet Hulk of it all, and that it was stronger, you thought, than the Asgard and Ragnarok stuff, which I agree with and was a real bone of contention in my review. And I really feel that they wanted to make a Planet Hulk movie. Now, just to explain to the folks at home in a nutshell, that's never going to happen, or they're never going to do a solo Hulk movie because Universal Pictures has the distribution rights to any solo Hulk movie. So they basically used Thor Ragnarok as a reason to do a Planet Hulk movie. I don't think the Ragnarok story and the Sakaar story, the Asgard and the Sakaar stories quite meshed. I really felt like the filmmakers' hearts were in the Planet Hulk part of the movie. And that generates the most comedy, and we have Taika Waititi, who did What We Do in the Shadows and Hunt for the Wilder People, really talented director making this movie. Did Ragnarok work for you as a comedy, or did it work more as a comedy for you than as a Ragnarok story, David?
I thought it worked well as both, but I can see the problem with trying to cram that big of a story. Because Planet Hulk, I mean, there's a great Marvel animated movie you can watch if you want to see a Planet Hulk story. Of course, there's the comic. Was it Peter David?
No, it's Greg Pak.
Greg Pak, who did Planet Hulk, which is also a great story. You got the comic book expert here. He's a comic book expert. That's why I asked him. He's a comic book expert. Both stories could stand as a film each. You could have a Planet Hulk movie, you could have a Thor Ragnarok movie. But I thought they still did a good job marrying the two because we want more Hulk. But Jim, like you said, it's under the Universal rights there, so we're not going to get a full-on Hulk story from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this is, I think, the best we can do. With that, they kind of married the two, so we got half Hulk, half Thor. But for me, I didn't think the two collided with each other in a bad way. I thought they blended well with each other.
I thought there was just such a distance between them because Thor it's obviously all the Ragnarok stuff going on. It almost felt as it's sort of a weird way to finish the movie because at the beginning he starts there and he's fighting Surtur, and he hears the prophecy of Ragnarok, which we know is the end of Asgard, and then he forgets about that for the rest of the entire movie, goes on this whole Planet Hulk adventure, which is the best part of the movie, and then he comes back, and then he kind of has to bring all that stuff full circle, and then he's like, oh yeah, that mask I stole at the beginning of the movie, let's use that as a plot point to defeat Hela. It just didn't, it felt weird, and that is also a huge important story for Thor, where it's the destruction of his home and everything he knows, and it just felt like it didn't belong in this sort of weird kind of like buddy arena gladiator movie that took place at the core of the movie. And then also the fact that he leaves and Hela stays, and that she messes up Asgard and unleashes all these horrible things, and they're hunting down the people as Thor is off on planet on Sakaar. They never marry, and she never seeks him out, and so he just comes back together at the end in a weird way that made her as a villain feel really impersonal, despite the fact that she's, spoiler, his sister.
Ooh, we'll get to that in a second. On the topic of tone and the comedy of it, I thought it was very funny. I did think the marketing gave away a lot of the big jokes. But I would also say that I think one of the big problems with the movie is it goes for the gag at the expense of moments of drama. For example, again, spoiler cast, and we'll get into this in more detail, but even at the end, Asgard is destroyed, and Taika Waititi, I thought very self-indulgently, cuts to his character, Korg, cracking wise about it. Like, we have spent 7 years with Asgard, with the Asgardians, Thor, Loki, all this, and it means nothing. It was that the destruction of all that meant nothing, and even to Thor himself, it never quite registered with me as a viewer that any of this meant anything to him. Like, he is thousands of years old. He has spent most of eternity in this place, and he just sees it goes up, and he's just kind of like, okay, well, that happened. Meanwhile, he's spent about 7 years bouncing back and forth to Earth and all that. So I thought they really did do a disservice to big dramatic moments, whether it was Odin's death, the destruction of Asgard, other little moments there that I just thought it was probably a wrong idea at the end of the day to try and marry the heaviest of all Thor sagas to a very light, fun movie, which is clearly the one people wanted to make, and that is the most enjoyable of the two.
And I feel like we're living in a post-Wonder Woman world where that character, all of the drama and all of the heroism in that was completely earnest and serious. And there were moments of levity and lightness and of humanity in that, but it was all played straight. And people really obviously gravitated to that. It's like one of the biggest movies of the year. And now we get this Thor movie, which is kind of like Wonder Woman, of like the godly, Marvel vein. And it's so silly and takes nothing seriously that it's almost too much. I feel like Marvel has run the joke into the ground a little bit. And Thor he's the last character who I want to see taken in such a heavy comedic bent that it almost didn't feel like Thor. I'll say that Chris Hemsworth actually did a great job. This is the most I've enjoyed him, but I felt it was almost a betrayal of the actual character he's playing.
I was going to say, I thought there were actually some nice quiet moments within the comedic, just blast off. There was so much comedy in there, especially the moments between Loki, Odin, and Thor. I thought those moments were done very well, and I don't think there was too much comedy in those parts, because that was a serious moment between two sons, even though Loki, is kind of an adopted child, but still two sons and their father, and him leaving, him going away. So, I think those were important moments. I don't think they lessen those by joking about it, because that's a serious moment. I think too, at the end, when you're talking about the end scenes right there, remember Odin's whole thing was about letting Asgard go. Asgard isn't a place; it never was. Asgard is where the people are, and now we're going to get on the ship and go to Earth. We'll talk about more later, but I think that was his point about letting it go. So the fact that they joked about it, I think, was them letting it go.
I think that was a completely manufactured way to do what they wanted to do, which was just get rid of Asgard because they were bored with it. if Asgard really was about the people and not a place, Odin has literally spent all of eternity protecting Asgard from numbers of threats. They could have cut and run at any point, thousands of years. I mean, he buried Hela away. If Asgard really is expendable, then what was the point of all that? So like, I thought it was just a way for them to sort of do what they wanted to do, which was just get rid of Asgard, that they were like bored with the place. The filmmakers, I mean, Marvel, frankly. So let's move on to more specifics here. Let's go into talking about the new characters. Let's start with Hela, since she is the big bad, the first female Marvel villain. To which I say, okay, so what? Like, Cate Blanchett's really fun. She's so captivating. And it's great that we finally had the first female Marvel villain, but I didn't think there was anything about that character and about that performance that I haven't seen in other genre movies, or frankly, even in other comic book movies where they've had female villains. It's a very hammy, kind of campy performance, and she's having fun with it, and she's, I could watch her in anything. But she's basically channeling, Max von Sydow as Ming the Merciless in Flash Gordon. And the movie is very much like Flash Gordon in a lot of ways. What did you guys think of Cate Blanchett and Hela?
I agree. I think she's a bit of a throwaway villain, but I feel like most of the Marvel movies do have throwaway villains. I mean, there's very few that are memorable. Maybe Chiwetel Ejiofor in Doctor Strange. We'll see what he does later on. I mean, he could be one of those villains. But I mean, we're not. I just don't think, and maybe I'm making excuses for Marvel, which probably isn't fair. But I don't think we're going to get that Heath Ledger style Joker performance that we saw in The Dark Knight from a future Marvel villain. Kevin Feige has come out and stated that these movies are about the heroes, they're not about the villains. So it's not that they don't care about the villains, but they're there to service the heroes, and the heroes are the most important part about these film franchises. So it's sad to say, I'd like to see them maybe take more risks with their villains so we get those iconic performances, but I think this is just another version of that. But I thought Cate Blanchett did an excellent job, because you can watch her in anything with the material she was given.
Yeah, I felt she started so strong. I thought it was so cool. Of course, it's a big show of force for her to come and crush Mjolnir into pieces like glass, and then like kick everybody's butt, and then make a big impact, take out Asgard's army and the ships and everything for their cool Gore the God Butcher type powers from the comics. So I thought all that was really cool, and just her knowledge of Asgard and her breaking the ceiling to revealing sort of the true bloody history of Asgard. I thought all that was so good. And then they pretty much ignore her for the rest of the movie. We check out on here just a little bit to see what she's up to, but she's not really up to anything of substance. And at the end, it's that kind of eye roll worthy video game boss dialogue of what were you the god of again, and this and that. Or
that
whatever.
is out of the Jason Aaron.
Sure, but the way she was saying it, like there was no substance to it. The reason Gore asked that of Thor. There's a lot packed into it, and he says it, and it's like, it's like this burn, but it's just another throwaway line in this movie.
I'll agree with that. I thought that the revelation that she was the oldest child, that she is the sister of Loki and Thor, that's great. And they could have really plumbed those depths, but they didn't do it. And they didn't, again, always going for the gag, always going for how can we just keep it moving, zip on to the next set piece, to the next thing to chuckle about. And as funny as the movie is, like, that's a really interesting dynamic. Again, like, Odin has been around forever, and he had this whole other life before these two showed up. And like, that would have been nice to know a little bit more about, or really have something more at stake, rather than Dad has sent me to my room for a long time. Like, she really wasn't in a lot of ways different than like the Mummy. Like, it's an ancient evil that's locked away. It comes out and it just wants to, destroy the world. Like, okay, I've seen that. What I haven't seen is Thor having a sister, and like, what does that mean? So they're like, well, as long as you just call me brother, or I call you sister, that's supposed to have some weight. It's like, no, I wanted to see something there.
Yeah.
Could this be a problem, with how Marvel builds their universes? Is that all these movies, individual movies, we've stopped doing the Iron Man ones. So like the Thors, the Guardians of the Galaxy, they're all servicing this big story that's going to come with Avengers: Age of Ultron. This big, huge.
Oh, you mean Infinity War?
I'm sorry, Infinity War. We already had Age of Ultron, and they're all trying to service that. So Thor doesn't have his own like Harry Potter kind of story or a Lord of the Rings kind of story. He doesn't have that big arc, so to speak. So maybe some of the issues you guys are having stem from that, because the thing is, this whole thing is servicing getting all these characters together so they can fight Thanos. It's not about Thor's rise, and what he's going for. Like I said, that's why I mentioned Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. They have their big arcs and their final story, the big thing they have to accomplish. But Thor doesn't have that necessarily. He has these little tiny adventures that are going to service the big story with the Avengers.
Well, I agree with that, and I think that is a problem because it's, if they are going to put the heroes first, as you're right, Feige has said that, then those heroes need to be well defined. And I feel like Thor's arc, he's been different in like almost every movie. He started off as Shakespeare Light, and by the time we're here, he's like Space Bro, and it's like, who is this guy? What did any of this mean to him? Even at the very end, he's lost everything. He's just sort of like, he's lost his eyes, and it's just like, it didn't have any weight, or maybe it's also partially just Chris Hemsworth. Like, he just wanted to have fun and, go play, but it's like, it didn't, as an actor, you have to show that this matters. This is your character's backstory. You've led them to this point, and I never got that because, again, I don't think Thor's just been the big guy with the hammer and, and look at my abs. And that's basically been what they've used him for.
His abs were flawless in this movie. I'm not going to lie.
We don't know if there was any CG. No. Let's talk about some other new characters, though. Unless you guys had any other thoughts on Hela.
On the abs? No. I could go on.
Let's talk about, Hela's sidekick, Scourge, or her flunky. I love Karl Urban. He is often the best, most unappreciated thing in any movie, even bad movies. This is not a bad movie. We're not saying it's a bad movie. But like Scourge wasn't quite Scourge like from the comics. And even his big sacrifice, which is a big homage to the comics, didn't carry that much weight because who is this guy? He's just he's like a bouncer. He's just like, he literally is a bouncer. He's the guy working the door. And he's just trying to get cute girls into his club, basically, is when we first meet him. So what did you guys think of that character and, how they handled him?
It was cool to see how loyal the adaptation of the visual of him, and when he had the two machine guns, that's lifted right out of the comics, the Simonson comics, which was so cool to see. But there was no real substance to it, and as enjoyable as his character was, he really just existed as someone for Hela to talk to.
Yeah.
And at the end, he sacrifices himself, and we don't care because we never got the time to invest in that character. I feel like this was really two movies, and had there been just a whole Asgard-based Ragnarok movie, he would have been fleshed out more, as would have Hela, and it might have been a little stronger. But the fact that we kept cutting away and barely getting anything from him, I was just pretty indifferent towards him by the end.
And also, too, like, these are two actors from the Lord of the Rings movies together again. And it never quite, not that it had to, but I was like, oh yeah, that happened. Yeah, they were, two big characters from Lord of the Rings. What do you think of how they handle Scourge?
Well, I mean, unlike Lord of the Rings, like you guys said, the character development was definitely not there. But I loved his introduction. I thought that was great when Thor, was calling out, like, Heimdall, and like, he's too busy telling these young ladies about his stuff and his guns and all the stuff he's collected on Midgard and, just his treasure trove of junk, which I thought was just perfect. I mean, Karl Urban, again, you put these talented actors, whether it's a Cate Blanchett or a Karl Urban, in these roles, and even when they're not given the best kind of material to work with, they still deliver the goods because they're such good actors. So I agree. He wasn't developed well, but it was still fun to see him, especially in his introduction.
Yeah. Let's move on to a character that really has gotten, a lot of people have been stoked to see this guy just because of the actor playing him. Grandmaster, played by Jeff Goldblum. He's a real scene stealer, but what did you guys think?
Again, I thought he started strong, just like Hela, and I was really into it. All the weird oddities and the melting stick and all this. It was just so lovably weird and strange.
Just like the real Jeff Goldblum.
Yes. It pretty much was just Jeff Goldblum in makeup, which is literally what it was. But then by the end, they didn't really build to anything. There wasn't like a confrontation with him and a payoff, so it felt a little empty at the end.
Yeah. Even the end tag scene of him stumbling out of the
I mean, that again, because it was just an end tag scene, didn't feel like it didn't feel satisfying. It was just like, oh, okay,
Yeah, he
that was
made
kind
it.
of funny, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm so satisfied with this character arc now.
Which
Yeah,
I
I mean, I think that was the one character for me that got a little old by the end. And I love Jeff Goldblum. I mean, of course, from The Fly all the way to Jurassic Park, he's just an incredible actor. But by the end, the last credit scene where he pops out and just starts kind of being goofy and doing what he's doing, that was the one time in the movie where I didn't laugh, and I was like, okay, that's enough.
Okay.
But again, it wasn't enough to ruin the movie for me. But just that scene, I had enough of Jeff Goldblum
Yeah.
at that time. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And then we had he's not in the movie too much, but Surtur shows up. We got Surtur. What you guys think of that character? Because I thought it was I did like the funny bit at the beginning when he's in, what is it, Nispelheim or Niflheim, whichever Heim, Anaheim, whatever
yeah.
Heim he's in, and he's just spinning there. That was funny, but it all comes down to just stealing the guy's hat. That's all it takes.
He had to beat a fire god.
All he had to do.
And it was
just
voiced
go
by
there.
Clancy Brown.
Yes, who's done a bunch of cartoon work, and I think Taika Waititi, the director, he did some of the mocap for that character too.
Oh.
But Surtur was kind of cool to see him, but I don't know. I feel like
Great design.
Great design.
Yeah.
I do feel though that Marvel, we're all Marvel Comics readers, and we love the stuff. Like I love the old stuff, but I do feel like they have a tendency to sort of shortchange or just kind of like burn through. Surtur. Burn through characters that are pretty important in the comics, or at least noteworthy, and even like Scourge, and it's like, okay, you only get them for one movie, and you just sort of just shortchange them.
Well, I'm curious. I'm just gonna ask a question to you guys, because I know we probably like to see them be developed more because the comics are such interesting characters. But maybe that's just Marvel's attempt to be like, okay, these guys are not going to get their own movie. They're not going to get a full-fledged movie. So let's just pay some service to the fans. Let's show them these characters, show them we care, show them we do pay attention to the material. Like, would you just rather not have them in there at all? I mean, I guess that's just kind of my question.
I think.
Is it distracting? Does it take away?
Well, I think in the case of Surtur, not so much. I think in the case of Scourge, where that's a bit more of an interesting character, and his, he's normally the sort of the right-hand guy of a different villainess of Enchantress. I'm Jim's pointing right now. But and they have a very kind of interesting bond, and I think seeing something like that done more service on screen would have been better for that character, more interesting. Yeah, I think Surtur, I mean, look, he's a sight gag character. It's a little tough to pull off a fire guy for 2 hours straight. But that being said, there are moments where you can do fan service things like with certain characters, and they've done that well in other movies. But I think the issue maybe is ultimately they're all in service of the Asgard story, the Ragnarok story, and that is the one that definitely gets shortchanged in favor of Sakaar. And I mean, look how much screen time and sort of attention has been paid to Jeff Goldblum, Grandmaster, who's ultimately kind of an inconsequential character. It's like it's cool that he's in there, but the movie could have worked without that character. You could have had a different. I mean, he's not in the Planet Hulk story. He's in Contest of Champions. Right?
That is true. Yes,
That
yes.
is true. Let's move on from these characters, though. Let's talk about some of the heroes. Let's talk about a new character, Valkyrie. Now, I thought Tessa Thompson was a really interesting casting choice. She's, if you haven't seen Creed, she's in that. She was in Dear White People. She was in
Westworld too.
Westworld. She's an up and comer, and I thought I liked her take on the character. I liked that she reminded me of like a gunfighter in a western who's sort of like just drinking, and I don't do that anymore, kid. They're kind of like a gunfighter trying to outrun their past. So I like that aspect of her. What'd you guys think of her? And her in the movie's interpretation of Valkyrie, which is different than how we know her from the comics.
Yeah, I thought she brought so much life and energy and fun, and it played it just right. And I guess the fact that I didn't know her character in the movie universe before, we're meeting her for the first time, I wasn't like put off by any of the, and nothing felt out of character, even though it was very different from the comic books. I was still like invested in that character. She had a lot of cool things to say and do, and she was very aware of her like the tragic, like, oh, I have a very painful past. I don't want to revisit. I just want to drink it all away. She was very aware of it, and would then played into it. And then eventually, when she made the turn, it was a great moment for her, regardless.
Yeah. So, David, what do you think of Valkyrie and Tessa's performance?
I love Tessa Thompson. Like I said, I love when Mark Ruffalo first met her when she's walking in, like, who is it? Like, what are the marks under her eyes? She's so beautiful and strong, and just how enamored he was with her. But I'm also, like I said, I'm a fan of romance too. I love romance stories, so I'm always concerned for Thor's well-being. You know, he's had some ladies in the past. He's had Jane Foster, Natalie Portman, which they allude to in this movie a little bit, like oh, I broke up with her. No, she broke up with me, that kind of thing. And then of course in 2 there's Lady Sif, but she's not around in this movie. So with Valkyrie now, is that going to be his new romance? You know, is my question, because they were at a great action sequence with them fighting, going towards the portal towards the end of the movie, and just like taking down the vehicles and fighting everybody off. So I'm glad she's a part of this universe. I hope she stays in this universe, doesn't just kind of magically disappear like some of the other leading ladies from the Thor world.
Yeah.
So for your romance detector, did you sense the romance between Thor and her or Hulk and her?
Both.
Really?
Yeah, I'm thinking a little love triangle going on
Ooh.
here. I'm thinking a little love triangle. I'm hoping for it.
I
Yeah.
think Hulk, I'm afraid you're going to end up in the friend zone, buddy.
Oh, no.
I just think that she looks at him like
Like a little
pet,
brother.
or my dog or something like
Okay.
like I did love that dynamic between them, and we'll get to talking about Hulk in a little bit, but I did love that she had that sort of more playful quality, that she wasn't treating Hulk the same way she was treating Thor, that she kind of respects Hulk in a way. I also love that she she sort of her kind of her kind of way with the Grand Master too, and the stuff with Rachel House's character Topaz, and that sort of like rivalry there, that she has been on Sakaar long enough now that she's made some friends and made some enemies. So I like that. Like that she, no matter where she goes, she makes some sort of an impact. Did you think it was a little weird though how she did escape Hela killing all the other Valkyries, and what she just fell and missed her? Like, I don't know. Now I'm nitpicking.
It looked like her fellow Valkyrie took the sword for her, even though it was a little
pushed her
unclear.
away a little bit.
Is that what
it almost looked
happened?
like, if you could look at that scene again, we don't have the freeze frame in front of us, it looked like her arm was extended, so it kind of like pushed her back as she took the brunt of the spears or swords being thrown at her.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh well, that now I'm. I don't mean to nitpick on that. Let's dive into those, since we're talking about Valkyrie and Hulk. Let's talk about Hulk, because this is, as we've said, has been clearly established in all the marketing, this is essentially Planet Hulk. This is as close to a Hulk standalone movie as we're probably going to get, and Mark Ruffalo has told us that Ragnarok marks the beginning of a 3-movie arc for Hulk going into the Avengers sequel. So, what did we think of this particular portrayal of Hulk and the big questions it raises? I mean, he's been Hulk for 2 years, since the end of Ultron. He talks more than he's positively chatty in terms of Hulk speak. So what'd you guys think?
See, I was a little torn on him, because I feel like this is a trend for me, is that when we first get the Hulk, I'm like super into it. That fight with him against Thor was awesome. What an entrance. And to see him from loving the Planet Hulk comic and seeing him in the full gladiator regalia and the helmet and the hammer and the axes, all of that was so cool. And then we sort of saw his sort of, he has a nice suite, right? And with all these like toys and tons of food and giant things of alcohol that Valkyrie drinks. And he's got like a hot tub and stuff. He's sort of living the life, but also he has the mentality of a 2-year-old. And that's where I sort of fell off a little bit, because when I heard about that, I was really intrigued to see how they were going to use that and tackle it in the movie, but I didn't quite get. I wasn't quite like laughing, nor was I entertained or intrigued by it. I was more just like, oh, this is what they're doing with it. He's just kind of like pouty, and I didn't quite work for me.
What about you, David?
I do like a little bit more story with Ruffalo, after he changed, back from the Hulk, because he's not been himself for 2 years, which is crazy. It's got to take a toll on the guy, but I mean, because this is a fast-moving movie that they can't stay in that moment. They have to kind of keep going. And I know, Joshua, we were talking about this earlier off camera about how he was so torn about being Hulk again, because he said, look, if I'm Hulk again, I may never turn back. And again, that's something maybe they glossed over, as well.
And I think that his choice in the end to make a sacrificial choice, again, speaks to the problem I have with the movie, which is they always go for the laugh. And a moment that is, this carries significant weight. He's becoming the Hulk again. He might not be able to turn into Banner, and they just turn it into a Wile E. Coyote running off the cliff moment.
Splat,
And it's funny, but if we hadn't had those stakes, it just to me, it's trampling your own best moments.
Yeah, and that was a huge choice for him, and I didn't like that they went for the joke there with the splat. Even though I'm laughing about it now, saying it, I didn't like that. I thought that robbed the drama of it, and then they never follow up on that of sort of acknowledging the fact of because on the ship at the end he's still the Hulk.
Yeah.
He never turns back to Banner. I think that's a problem, and it never gets brought up.
Yeah, I did love Hulk and Thor's kind of chemistry together. I really did enjoy it. I did like sulky Hulk, that he is basically like this bratty kid. He's spoiled now, and the Grandmaster, he's like, he kind of reminds me of poor little rich kid up there. He's got no friends and all this sort of thing.
Aww.
So I did kind of enjoy that, and I like the way that Valkyrie and him got along.
Sun's getting real low.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I love that. That's what Black Widow said to Ultron to calm him down. It was so funny that Thor tried that, and he kept saying it to him. He kept saying it to Banner.
He's rubbing his shoulders like sun's getting real. He's like, "Would you stop saying that?"
I did love Ruffalo in this, and I just want to give a shout out to the effects, the performance capture stuff. I thought, Hulk has looked better with each movie, more realistic, and you can really see more of the essence of Ruffalo in the Hulk monster now, and just, you can believe that actor, that guy becoming this thing, and so I really did. I enjoyed a lot of the Hulk stuff, and I enjoy the Planet Hulk stuff. I just, again, don't know if the marriage of Planet Hulk with Asgard and Ragnarok, the end of all things, quite worked for me. I still think there's just a big schism there that the movie never quite found that right balance, and sort of really wanted to make that Planet Hulk movie.
Yeah, and we were saying Planet Hulk, but really it's like Planet Thor, because it's Thor that's taken to this journey and has to discover this world and this gladiator, go through the gladiator arena and everything, and then it's kind of this weird reversal, because in the comic, Hulk is in the arena, and then he gets a surprise combatant that's the Silver Surfer, which is so awesome, with his board strapped to his arm as like a shield and everything. It's so cool. But in the movie, Hulk is the surprise opponent, so it's not really about Planet Hulk, right? It's like we have to become Planet Thor.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's the strongest leg of the movie.
And sorry, Joshua, you're the comic book expert, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this story different because the Hulk does kind of a self-exile? He exiles himself, or isn't it?
He goes through a wormhole by accident. By accident is what happens.
But in Planet Hulk, don't the Avengers send him down there because he's
yes.
I remember
in the comic, the Avengers they shoot him off into space to a peaceful planet. Then he accidentally gets thrown off course and winds up on Sakaar. But in this, it feels like he chose to do it at the end of Age of Ultron. He chose
Quinjet.
Like he decided to fly off into space.
It was a little unclear in the footage thing where the ship hits the.
Yeah, he was like kind of grasping. He's like,
I don't know if he went
through
but also too, wormholes in space. Apparently, they all drop you off in Sakaar. Because we'll get to Loki here in a second, but like Loki and Thor are going through the Rainbow Bridge, Loki falls off, probably thousands and thousands of miles difference between where Thor enters and Loki doesn't, and they both end up through the same wormhole, or ones that'll take you just to Sakaar.
Yeah, it was. I think they never said this in the movie, but I think in the leading up they explained that Sakaar was sort of like the sewer or like the trash heap of where all these different drains and wormholes of the universe kind of go there. Not all of them go there, but it's easy to wind up there because it's sort of the bottom and sort of the heap at the bottom.
Well, that's what we thought about Hulk and how he was used in the movie. We want to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Let's talk about Loki. So Loki, Tom Hiddleston back again. It's his first time since think 2013, that was Thor: The Dark World. What do you think of how they used Loki in this movie? And also, let's talk about a little bit that cameo. But what you think about how they used Loki?
We're talking about, kind of a lack of really good villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he's probably one of the best, if not the best. And he's basically the butt of all the jokes now. He's the butt of all the jokes. But the only times that I really enjoyed seeing Loki were those moments when it was Odin, Thor, and Loki together dealing with their loss of their father. And then, those quiet moments when it had that same relationship we've seen with Loki and Thor. It's like Thor starts trusting Loki, he betrays him, which obviously Thor is getting very good about reading his own brother and can kind of, be one step ahead of him. But it feels like Tom Hiddleston, he's such a good actor, he's just the butt of all the jokes now. He's the guy who we just laugh at, which is too bad because he's probably the best villain the Marvel Universe has right now.
I mean, this was the character who invaded Earth. And
yeah,
now
I mean,
he is
think
basically
about where he's come from Avengers to where he is
Yeah.
now. He's just kind of the goofball now.
Yeah, what'd you think about?
I don't know about goofball. I still feel like he's like sly and up to no good. But yeah, he is at the butt of more jokes. You see what you're saying, and it was of course priceless to see him start squirming when he sees the Hulk for the first time, and then then when Thor gets ragdolled, then he goes like, "That's what that feels like." So that was funny. But his character didn't grow at all in this movie. I feel like his
They
strongest
acknowledge that too, that he's a character without
Yeah,
growth.
true.
They
You
do,
know?
but I feel like his strongest performance was in Thor: The Dark World, and this was sort of a step back for him. And I feel like I didn't get anything new, and there wasn't a role of significance for him. He was sort of along for the ride. And he lost his fangs and his potency because everyone sort of knew what he was up to. It was almost sort of like a weird, almost seemed like beneath him in a way that he would find. He's like, well, I'm going to find some way to win people over, and then he comes and he shows up with the ship to save everyone at the end on the Rainbow Bridge. But I was like, well, do you find value in Asgard and its people, and do you actually care, or are you just like trying to pull a fast one on people? I didn't really know.
I feel like ultimately Loki was in the movie, one, because they feel like they have to put Loki in the movie. They had to address the Asgard stuff from, Odin being, supplanted at the end of the second movie. But it really felt like ultimately he was just there to get the Tesseract out of the throne room so that they can get to Infinity War. I felt like he ended up being a plot device. And we can talk a little bit more about those spoilers in a moment, in a few moments we have left. But yeah, I think Loki ultimately, he is just used as almost like a pincushion throughout the whole story.
Yeah.
He is literally there to just have pain inflicted on him. Also, I didn't quite buy the whole reveal of, oh God, Hulk is here. As funny as it is, he's been in Sakaar for weeks or months or whatever at this point. Everyone is worshiping Hulk. They have Hulk piñatas. They're out in the street with things, doing parades. He's got a giant bust of him on the side of the building. And you're only now finding out that there's the Hulk right
Now that
there.
you pointed out, that's a great point. How did he not notice? Maybe he was just really just focused on getting in with the Grand Master and joining him on his pleasure yachts for
But the Grandmaster talks about everything when he's talking. I have this big green monster guy. He dropped out of the sky. He's just fantastic. And look, we put things up to him everywhere. And they're like,
Maybe it was
there
the
wouldn't be
off-season.
one moment of Tom Hiddleston going, geez, this sounds real familiar, but oh, okay. But, it just, to me, it didn't quite, I
You're
didn't
right.
quite buy
Yeah,
it.
it's hard to miss the giant building with the Hulk's face on it.
Let's move on to some spoilerish things within our spoiler cast. I did love the Matt Damon, Sam Neill, Luke Hemsworth cameo, the little theater company reenacting Dark World. I thought that was really funny, kind of Loki just sitting back enjoying his own movie, if you will, like his own story.
I was actually shocked to see Matt Damon there because I've interviewed him before and asked him about like, hey, interested in getting in on like the superhero thing, and he we've all interviewed people. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying I asked him the question because of course I'm gonna ask him that question of just like, would you want to do the superhero thing? And he was so just not into it. So I was so just surprised to see that he finally got into it as just a little joke bit of just having a little fun with it.
What did you guys think ultimately of the choice to like they just kill off the Warriors 3 like that? Like Volstagg and Fandral, we've spent 2 movies with them. They're Thor's best buddies for eons, and they're killed within seconds. And I understand, on one hand, we should be like, holy crap, that's how badass Hela is. She killed off these 2 guys. But you feel nothing because they're literally just there. You haven't seen them in 5 years or whatever, and they're killed just like that. And then Hogan gets his stuff is a little more protracted, I think, just to make up for barely using him in the Dark World. But what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, they were just used as cannon fodder, and it felt like disrespectful to the characters and the actors.
Yeah.
Of just like, hey, we're just gonna have Hela kill you off immediately as a show of her power, while not creating any sort of moment or substance, or giving us a reason to care. Or I think even just one scene of just reminding us of who they are and why they mean so much before taking them away would have been great. And also Thor, we never see him learn of their death. Like he doesn't ask when they're all piling.
Nobody asks about Sif.
Yeah,
Where is she?
that's another problem. But yeah, when they're all piling on the ship, shouldn't he have been like, hey, where are my 3 best friends? Why aren't they here? Like that's another thing that they just don't really show you the impact of the loss of Asgard and these people that mean a lot to Thor.
Yeah.
I think, with Jane, even though it seems silly because it seems like every movie since the first Thor, it's like they just throw some little additive in there being like, oh, she's off doing this, or she's off studying here, or oh, she broke up with me. But at least they just kind of mention her. I'd rather have just a little bit of that. Maybe be like, hey, Sif is off somewhere else. Even if it seems ridiculous and out of character, it's fine. 'Cause it's like, okay, at least they acknowledge her. She's off somewhere else. She's not going to be part of this adventure. We see that in comics all the time. Not all the characters in every world are involved at the same time. So if they just acknowledge it, maybe it's a little side note. They didn't have to even show the characters. If it was a budget thing, save them for the next movie. Like, just don't kill them off like that. Especially, I love Ray Stevenson. He's one of my favorite character actors out there.
Heimdall, I also thought was kind of, I really felt like Idris was just kind of going through the motions. Their use for the character was, it makes sense. Like somebody's going to look out for the Asgardians since, the Prince of Asgard is decided to, is just gallivanting on Planet Hulk on Sakaar. But I've never really felt like Idris Elba, frankly, cared if he was in these movies or not. Like, so I thought they kind of, didn't. They gave him more to do than they've given in the past movies, but I still just felt watching him like he doesn't really want to be here, does he? Like, would you guys disagree? Agree? What do you?
I mean, just a pitch. I've always thought he would make a great Jon Stewart. I don't know if he's getting too old for that now. I just love. I know that's the DC universe, but no, I think Idris. He's a leading man. He might not get those leading man parts all the time, but ever since The Wire, he's proven. He's just one of the better actors out there right now. And I don't know if it's that he doesn't care that he's there, but I don't think they just give him much to work with. I think this was the one movie where they gave him the most amount of material to work with. And I thought he did a good job with it.
Yeah. Odin, overall, okay with the amount of screen time he got. I thought, what is it with every, comic book movie, you got to have the dead parent callback moment so you're roused to action, Like,
Yep. Yeah, it was so weird how in the trailer, Hela confronts Thor. It looked like on like a city street, but in the movie they were in Norway on that open green field.
I think that was supposed to be Surtur's realm or wherever. Yeah, but
in the
original trailer.
It wasn't on a city street?
No, it looked like a gray, dark background. It doesn't really matter because
thought
in
it
the
was
movie,
on-
she's
It
in
looked
the
like an
middle.
alley. It looked like an alley.
alleyway.
Yeah, in New York or something. But who knows? I'm sure that was a long time ago.
Oh, okay, but forget. But I guess my thing is, it was like Anthony Hopkins was just like, I just got one day. Hey, I'm in Norway. Can you guys come by and shoot this on because he had just one kind of day's worth of scenes where he just says some really impactful things to his sons, and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm dying, and then they kind of blame it on Loki, but not really, and then he just evaporates, and I was really confused by all of that. But
I've been alive for years, and I guess
here's the plot points you need to know about Hela, the villain of this movie. See you later, and then I'll be back later for your big emotional moment. I don't know.
What'd you think of how they handled Odin?
I mean, I feel like that's just who Anthony Hopkins is now. I mean, if you look at Westworld, the latest Transformers movie, he shows up, he says something very profound in his beautiful British accent, you know, because he's the king at doing that, and he's earned the right. He's had a successful career, so I think that's just Anthony Hopkins more than the character of Odin. But
It's the writing though too.
it's the writing too, yeah. No, but I like those moments. I wish we had more of them though. But I still like those moments between Thor, Loki, and Odin.
Let's talk about the big MCU cameo here in the movie. Again, spoilers to those at home who haven't seen the movie yet. What are you doing watching this? Bad fans, bad fans. So anyways, Doctor Strange, we know from the end of Doctor Strange that he meets Thor. So what did we think of that sequence? What did we think of Doctor Strange in the Thor Ragnarok?
I'm gonna give it a positive. Give it a thumbs up. I love Benedict Cumberbatch. I don't think the scene was necessary to move the story along, but it was a continuation of that end credit scene that we saw on Doctor Strange. It just kind of showed you the whole scene, and there were some nice moments. We see how powerful Doctor Strange has become. You know, I mean, the way he's just effortlessly changing locations and moving Thor around the room. He even surprises Loki a couple times with those portals, and I've been falling for 30 minutes kind of thing. So there were some nice comedic bits in there, but I don't know if it actually did anything for the story.
I just really liked it that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's been this way for a while now, but it's so interconnected that any hero can kind of show up in another hero's story, even if for a little bit. And it does make sense that someone like the Sorcerer Supreme, like Doctor Strange, would have alerts set up that like really powerful villains are, you know, showing up on Earth, and he would be alerted to that and do something about it. So I thought it was really cool. That's very much, it's kind of like one issue of a comic book that this is where Thor meets Doctor Strange. And he, you know, takes out Loki. They have like, you know, a little misunderstanding, and then he sends him on his way with more information. So I thought it was a cool, although I agree that's not that necessary cameo.
Like, I don't know if you're gonna even remember that Doctor Strange was in this movie like a few weeks after seeing it. Like, you'd be like, oh yeah, he was in that movie. I mean, I love the character of Doctor Strange, Benedict in the role. I'm not quite sure that him and Thor, and again, it was only a few scenes, but I don't know how much chemistry they actually had together, which does make me wonder about Infinity War. I don't know if those, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to see it.
They did plant a seed there, so when they get to Infinity War, the characters will be able to be like, oh, hey, I know him, or they'll have something to play off, and Loki will, of course, probably be a little angry at him if they cross paths there. But I also thought it was weird that Doctor Strange, his whole movie was about doing this like particular kind of like magic, but it was more like a manipulation of energy, not like real magic as we would think about it. Yet in this movie, he was like filling Thor's like cup back up and stuff, like all this kind of like practical magic and like stage magic. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on here? And then I will finally say about a last note on Doctor Strange is that it was cool to see him in the yellow comics accurate gloves.
Yeah, I mean, we did get a hint of that in the end credits clip, but it was great to. Look, I love Doctor Strange. I'd like to see more of him on the screen, but again,
you made Doctor Strange. We
that's a story for another time, but it's on the internet. You know, I think it'd be interesting to see what they do with Thor and Doctor Strange next. But again, I don't think you necessarily needed him in the movie. But at least them going to New York, we did get that funny little moment of the selfie. Thor getting the selfie with the fans and like, you know, all that. So that was interesting. Let's move on from Doctor Strange. Let's talk about the ending of the movie and what we think is next for the MCU. Now, spoiler warning within our spoiler warning of our spoiler cast. If you weren't at D23 or Comic-Con and didn't see that footage of Infinity War that answers these questions, then this is a spoiler for you. But Thor, the beginning of the Infinity War footage that was shown at those conventions shows Thor floating in space. He is discovered amidst this kind of cosmic wreckage. Something really bad has happened, and he's discovered by the Guardians. So we see his ship at the end, and that is Thanos' ship that shows up. I had Taika Waititi confirm it for me in my Junkin interview with him.
Look at you name dropping.
Look at that. That's that name.
I'm just impressed here. I'm just in awe.
You're going to have to get used to this now, your guy. So anyway, so the Thanos' ship shows up. So clearly, did Thanos destroy the Asgardian Ark, if you will, or do they make it to Earth? What do you guys think? It's not clear from the Infinity War footage, but something bad happened. Something got blown up. and Thor was separated from them.
Yeah, I hope not. That'd stink if he spent the whole movie saving Asgard and then and then in like the opening moments of Infinity War, it gets blasted to pieces. I don't know. Maybe he's like, I'll hold them off, and then they escape, and then maybe he blows up. Maybe the wreckage is that ship. Like he takes out the ship so they could get away, but then he's knocked back by Thanos or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm just writing fanfic here.
I will say that footage they showed at the cons, Thor had 2 eyes, so clearly maybe that is one reason that explains why it hasn't been released yet as a trailer or anything, because they'll have to go back and add the eye patch. That or he somehow gets a new eye on the ship, but I feel like they're going to keep the eye patch thing. And I don't know, that kind of speaks to the old King Thor kind of stuff. Like, I don't know.
Also from Jason Aaron's comics.
Yeah, I think, but do we think, will the Asgardians actually get to Earth, and will they do that? Was it Broxton, Oklahoma thing, and they're just, what is it, Asgard is floating?
Yeah.
I
think
You
so.
had an idea about that.
I think so. I'd like to see them go to Oklahoma, or you were suggesting somewhere in New York.
Or no, I was saying in the original Thor movie
New Mexico.
where they're in like New Mexico.
Right.
that's what it
Yeah,
was.
Like, what if he ends up back? Oh, I know another place on Earth that's probably a little cooler for us. We'll just go to this town. I mean, I could see them doing that, kind of taking the idea of the Broxton, Oklahoma stuff.
If we're going with the whole Marvel universe doing all these comedic bits, I mean, that's just ripe for comedy.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
one of the best things about the original Thor was when he was walking through town, going to the coffee shop, and slamming, another, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
I will say though that the representative for Asgard to Earth is Volstagg, and he's dead, so they can't do that.
Oh crap! Well, maybe it's going to be Sif then. Maybe they figure
There it
out-
is.
Maybe she's been on Earth. I
Yeah,
don't
maybe
know.
she was like on vacation. She's like, I just want to try Midgard out. See
She
what's
was
the-
scouting out
Yeah.
real estate
Yeah.
for the eventual
Like,
new
I want to go
Asgard.
to Aruba, work on my tan.
What did I
don't know.
miss? Yeah.
But also other things about the ending is that we see Loki, as he's in Odin's vault room and he eyes the Tesseract. We also see from that Infinity War footage, Loki offering up the Tesseract, and he looks kind of scared but a little guilty too. Do we think that maybe the Tesseract, is it almost like some sort of weird like honing device, beacon of some kind for Thanos to be able to like track him? That must be the reason why he shows up there. He wants one of the Infinity Stones, so he must have a way to track it.
Okay, let's have Infinity Stone talk right now.
Okay.
Well, first I want to say I also loved the part where Hela was going through the trophy room and she sees the Infinity Gauntlet that we of course saw in Thor 1, and she pushes it over and goes, fake.
I love that.
Because fans have been asking about that for years and really giving Kevin Feige a hard time about it, but they're like, they had an answer for it and they were just like, it's fake. It's so funny.
And Joshua, I mean, again, going to your expertise, the only one we're missing is the Soul Gem, right? Because wasn't like the big theory before Thor Ragnarok, was released, we're like, maybe Hela has the Soul Gem, but it doesn't seem to be the
which
case.
it would be orange, which is, and people were saying the exploding Asgard wasn't fire, it was orange Infinity Stone energy. That didn't happen, obviously. So we have one stone unaccounted for. Maybe Thanos already has it, or he gets it in between movies or something. I'm not sure, because in the comics the Infinity Stones want to be together, and when one is next to the other, they want to find the others. So maybe maybe that's how he finds the Tesseract. Maybe that's what draws him to the Tesseract, to the arc that the Asgardians are on.
Yeah, maybe.
Perhaps, I don't know, or maybe it was dumb luck. Who knows?
He could. I mean, for all we know. Maybe he picked up the one that's on what's the planet from Guardians where the Nova Corps is. Maybe Sif is back there like, oh look, I hear somebody's looking for this or whatever, and maybe that's how she comes into play. But I don't know. Like it does seem like the Infinity War footage that I saw did establish that something bad happened. Somehow Thor is separated from everyone else. He's separated from Hulk. He's separated from Loki. I do think I could see them blowing up that ship but it would be really cheap and frankly kind of stupid, but I could still see them do that. I do want to see them get to Oklahoma or New Mexico or wherever they are.
I more see the Asgardian arc being captured by Thanos, so then Thor then has a really personal reason to want to beat Thanos to get them back.
Okay.
Like a ransom almost.
Yeah, I can see that.
Interesting. All right. Any other things you guys want to say about the ending, or any big spoilers that we didn't cover?
I don't know. I just really enjoyed this movie overall. That's why I said when you mentioned what my score would be, it was an 8.5, because I don't know. I think I'm a sucker. I get sucked into just the jokiness and the action. And I know there's some plots that get overlooked and maybe some storylines that are rushed, but for some reason I'm just lost in just how fantastic, how well directed this movie was.
Yeah, I don't disagree that it was entertaining and it was very funny, but that it's one, cheapened by too much humor, what I thought, and then two, not what I would go to a Thor movie for, because I didn't feel like this was that great of a Thor movie. So that's just me.
Interesting. I actually thought it was the most entertaining, probably the best of the 3 Thor movies, although I will say I agree with you. In terms of like the Asgard stuff, the humor trampled that, and it clearly felt like their hearts were in making the Planet Hulk, Planet Thor movies. So overall, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was pretty good. I just didn't think it was great. But okay, I'm glad that we had a nice range of reactions to it. And we want to hear what you folks thought of Thor Ragnarok. Let us know in the comments. You can find us on Twitter at Jim Vivida, at Joshua_Yale. What's your
underscore.
No underscore. At Joshua Yale. What's your
I
Twitter?
am at Griffin DE.
All right. Let us know what you thought in the comments. And of course, we want you to check out our review of Thor Ragnarok, and also find out what Mark Ruffalo had to tell me about how Thor Ragnarok starts a 3-movie arc for Hulk. And of course, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you like to watch IGN.